this panel, we want to give a floor also to audience. So there are two versions how you can participate. One is by Slido, and soon you will see QR code where you can go for a question possibility in Slido, so an electronic version. I will monitor Slido. I don't promise that I can ask all questions, but I will try to do my best. And also you will have an opportunity to share your experiences and thoughts in the audience who are present here. So, and my colleagues with mics will help. But at first we will have some warm-up from our distinguished panelists. And we have been discussing in the first part of the conference about Latvia, about our partners, about national level cooperation. But now we will try to zoom out at global level and look from different perspectives. So we will have several rounds, but at first, as we are also, as I said, looking back in a way for the 25 years of development cooperation, and all participants have had their specific role in this, if I may say, story, I would like to ask the first question to all panelists, and maybe in some 3 minutes you can tell how do you think, what characterizes the landscape of global partnerships if we look back over these 25 years, and what has been your specific role in this area? So, Your Excellency, Ambassador, floor is yours.
Good morning, and thank you so much for inviting me to this panel. Very telegraphically, since the time is very precious, I think the most important what I want to say is that Latvia definitely has learned from the mistakes of the past, and if before World War II our country has been thinking that let's be isolated, let's be inward-looking, let's be neutral, let's be invisible, and that's the right strategy to keep us safe and keep us prosperous, that policy has failed dramatically, and definitely since the beginning of independence 30 years ago, we've been trying to be as much vocal, as much present, as much contributing, and regardless of all headwinds and pushbacks and complexities of the world. Of course, the world is changing rapidly. We are now already more than 8 billion of us around the world. And we are a small member of the global community, but still, I think we have been trying to be as much committed and as much involved, and I think we have learned that the world is much more interconnected, that we have to use our biggest microphones, and we have to share our best practices and our best achievements with others if we want to make the world safer, greener, more sustainable. Of course, we will go through the panel on many specific issues. SDGs have been adopted in 2015. Last week, we have recommitted to SDGs during the Summit for the Future. We managed to adopt 3 important documents, including the Pact for the Future, Digital Compact. For the first time, we have the unilaterally accepted declaration for the future generations, so with a kind of strategic outlook. On paper, we have a lot of good intentions, and we have on paper multilateral consensus. But of course, the practical implementation is the biggest difficulty. We know it internally, but globally, of course, the magnitude is much more complicated. But what is the most important, that Latvia is a constructive player in this cooperation, and I want to thank everyone in this room, from the private sector, from the NGOs, from academia, from the youth organizations who are contributing to that. And of course, the culmination of our efforts in that regard is our candidacy for the Security Council. We are running for the first time. It's a voluntary thing. It's not a EU rotational presidency. It is not a must by the books, but it is a deliberate and well thought through choice of the Latvian people, of the Latvian government, to be on the forefront of change. Our slogan is "Together for Peace and Resilience," and of course, resilience means also economic development. And we want to be a contributing player on all most important debates, be it cybersecurity, be it artificial intelligence, be it climate security nexus, be it, of course, promotion of women empowerment, including in business, entrepreneurship, and of course, strengthening of the rules-based international order. We are believers in that. We clearly see that the world is much smaller than it used to be. Everything is interconnected, and even small countries can be a catalyst of change globally.
Thank you. And Mr. Piebalgs, I think you have been an evidence that small countries can be in forefront also in 2015 when we had the European Year for Development, which actually, thanks to your initiative and support as Commissioner, was our possibility to showcase Latvia's word at the European scale. But when you look back on this specific field of policy, what are your observations and role?
Well, I think I should start with congratulations. Definitely, it's an achievement for a small country with not particularly promising starting point to develop, to be a player in development cooperation. And it is definitely for the enthusiasm, the people that has been involved in and support of NGOs. Looking for Latvia experience, it's definitely they could be proud what they are doing now in Ukraine. There are things that you could be done better, as always, because the scale is different, but the experience of the years before helped to develop good projects and good strategies really according to financial means. If I go more broadly, then definitely times have changed immensely. And the difficulty is that it's too many things happening at the same time, and you can't have any more long-term policies. You are trying very much to respond to the crises that are coming here and there, and it's correct. But you somehow has less ability or less willingness really to look in longer framework. I deal at least with three directions that are, well, easy in a way. One is nutrition. Nutrition helps in a lot of for health. It helps also for growth, limiting growth of population. It's many aspects that are good, but it is an area that is not burning immediately. So that means financial means for this area are limited despite good research and good initiatives. The other one is discussion about global fund and global health architecture. It's again a bit of challenge because global fund definitely have been success. We would not have advanced so well on malaria or tuberculosis or AIDS if we wouldn't have created global fund. But now the funding is getting scarce. So that means that instead of building on the success, you really need to think how to preserve essentials. And the last and not the least, it is the energy sector. Africa definitely lacks access to the energy. You need to build interconnectors, infrastructure. How do you build if you have not enough guarantees or financial means to it? Basically, you are limited to poverty and you are limited to burn whatever you have. So that means that you need really to have more healthy look. Security Council definitely is a crucial element because it drives forward. What I'm happy is that SDGs at least have been mentioned. Also in Commission mandate letters from President von der Leyen, it's there. So I was very pleased because it's a bit demonstrates that Europe still tries to think a bit in longer term perspective. But it is a challenge, and what could help it is only wisdom of the people that decide about budgets, investments for global peace. Because whatever you deal with, you try really to minimize the risks and increase ability of the world to resist different crises, or health crisis, or food crisis, or security crisis. EU peace facility was success. It was started in Somalia, and we use it later on, preserving peace in many places, and still it sounds quite a good vehicle. So it is difficult to defend always as a policy that does not give results immediately. But yeah, we need to advocate for it. We need to say what is not working, what is working, and where the financial means engage in the frameworks that actually exist could bring the best benefits for the mankind.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And continuing this thought on expressing the needs, and as our colleague from Ukraine before mentioned also, that it's not enough to build infrastructure, you need also to build people power. Madame Srak, you are representing in a way here people around the world because Forus is an international network of national platforms. And how does it seems this changing world from your perspective?
Thank you very much. And thank you very much for this invitation. Very honored to be here with you today. And it was very inspiring to hear about all the different perspectives this morning and about Latvian development cooperation for the last 25 years. So yes, indeed, Forus is a global network of national platforms of NGOs and regional platforms of NGOs. LAPAS is our member in Latvia. And Forus was created a bit over 15 years ago to make sure that civil society has a coordinated and impactful voice at all levels, and that we really are able to catalyze and amplify the words and the needs and the priorities of people and of civil society in all its diversity. And to do that at national level, with national governments, at regional level, and also at international level. So we work at the UN, for example, as observers, of course. At the EU level, we're part of the Global Gateway CSO and LA Dialogue Platform, and at the OECD DAC CSO Reference Group, etc. And so what we're trying to do is threefold, is to connect civil society from across the world, as we've heard this morning, to learn from each other, to share best practices, good examples, to be stronger together, to support capacity development, and also to make sure that through coordinated messages, clear messages towards decision makers, we make the voice of people heard, and from the people themselves. And that's very, very important to us. And when you ask about the last 25 years of the partnership landscape, let's put it like that, well, I think I share the analysis that it's been going a little bit up and down. There are some clear improvements, and I think there are definitely improvements on the multilateral side. There was a big momentum in 2015 when the SDGs were agreed, when the Paris Agreement was agreed, the Addis Ababa Action Agenda, etc. But there are also some very, very important risks at the moment. You've mentioned the Summit of the Future that just happened last week. And yes, there was an agreement and everyone was very relieved. But what was the cost, the diplomatic cost to get to that agreement? So I think there is a very pivotal moment right now to make sure that we safeguard trust in the multilateral system, and every one of us has a role to play in that. And also to make sure that we really invest in values and in people. We've heard it this morning on the previous panel, and I'm very happy that the Global Gateway is a values-based initiative, right? But I think we need to do more than words and nice statements. And as you've mentioned just before me, now the really, really hard work is ahead of us to make sure that by demonstrating that we are able to put all these nice words into action and into impact and to benefit for the people on the ground. This is the only way, I think, on how we can make sure to safeguard that trust in multilateralism and make sure that we build a better future for future generations.
Thank you so much. we have this joke that we are sometimes envying Estonia when they are a little bit advanced if we compare with Latvia, but we are brave enough to invite you to panel to share your experiences. And indeed, your development agency has been working longer than Latvia's one. So, Mr. Jerets, what could be your, let's say, look back for 25 years and any food for thoughts for us?
Okay, labdien. Shall I make the joke now?
Yeah.
Yeah? Everything is better in Latvia, including the neighbors. Yeah. You know this joke, right? It's an Estonian national joke. You can do that joke as well. Feel free to make your own version of it and do tell to the colleagues. I'm sorry I can't speak UN, so I'm a relatively fresh director of development cooperation. I used to be head of Estonian EU coordination for 15 years, so I can speak EU, I can speak Brussels, but not New York, or Geneva. But I think from a personal perspective, 25 years ago, I started in civil service in Ministry of Interior, Chapter 24, Justice Home Affairs, first negotiations ever that EU did towards the countries. So I think, I mean, from a personal perspective, this has been an amazing journey, and congratulations for Latvia as well. I mean, look around. This is amazing. So we made some right choices along the way, and I think war in Ukraine vindicated those choices that had been made, and I wish good luck to Andres as well on the Security Council campaign. We've been through this. This will change you also. Don't expect you will be changing the world, but the world will also change you. A colleague once said to me that, you know, in the battle between you and the world, bet on the world. So maybe this is also a takeaway. But of course, this has been an amazing journey for the last quarter of a century. The sad side of it, I have kids also 18 and 16, and of course you look at the kids' eyes as well, the world you're going to leave them behind, and obviously as a parent, you're happy that your kids are, you know, like the normal Western kids. I mean, we are not kind of normal. We come with a Soviet trauma, and we have this in us. And it's great to see that the kids are all right, as the WHO has said in the you know, the WHO, yes? Well, the kids are all right. There's an album about that. But at the same time, what I'm really worried as a parent, of course, is that we are going to leave them the world that we came from. And it unfortunately looks that way. I'm a very big multilateralist. I like EU, I like UN. But unfortunately, the world does seem to go the other way currently. And of course, if we will be able to stop that kind of a trend, I think this will be played out now in Middle East as well as in Ukraine, how this will go, and this will change that world. We can't deny it, and let's hope it doesn't expand into anything we don't want to see. So we are not going to return to the old world. That's taken. What will be the new world? I hope Latvians will be around the table in UN to be able to decide that. So we have enjoyed the ride as much as you have enjoyed the ride. I think one of the learning curves is also that we are in this together. I've enjoyed very much being here. It's second time already in the year. My first meeting was 3 Baltic states meeting in January, and I hope there will be one more during the year. But I mean, sometimes we are ahead, sometimes Lithuania is ahead, sometimes Latvia is ahead. But we actually develop, and we should actually give that regional perspective also in mind. What has also changed, I think, in 25 years, which was full of hope, and it was an amazing period to work in, was that you know, Europe is not yet united continent. Europe is not full, free, and at peace. That's our fight of our generation, I think, still to do. So this is something, and unfortunately, you could see that you hope that this is a one-way direction. You know, you go into this kind of a liberal dream, the SDG world, the everything, and you see that the dark forces are always there. So we have learned a lot about these forces, I think, at play, and also we have discovered a lot of the world. Our advantage, I think, in this is that we have been in the other side of the equation. Our generation, at least, has been in the other side of the equation. Talleyrand, the French foreign minister of the past, Napoleonic one, actually said that you can do a lot of things with a bayonet, but it's very hard to sit on them. So we have been on the development policy of bayonets in the past, and we have now been in development policy how the West perceives the world around it. So we've seen both sides. I think it's a unique understanding of ours. What's the other side? I don't think our Western partners actually have that. We have been part of Soviet Union, so we know how development policy there works. So
Thank you so much.
that's for the first.
Yeah, and I really invite participants to ask questions. I don't see any yet. Therefore, let me not follow the scenario and be a little bit provocative for a panel first. But I'm very happy if also audience can answer this question. So you said we have been on both sides, right? Recipients and also now donors, but as Sarah mentioned, we say now partnerships. And the name of this panel is the Development Cooperation as Foreign Policy Instrument. Can partnerships be instrument? And if yes, then what kind of instrument and what could be benefits or challenges? Yes.
Well, if you have the hammer, every problem looks like a nail. So, so I think everything is instrument. The money you get from the taxpayers and the one you ask for them, of course, is an instrument. I don't think there's anything bad in it. I come from an agency that is formed by Foreign Ministry, and I'm actually a diplomat in my upbringing. So I've never been on the, sorry to say, humanitarian side of things, even though we have also, of course, humanitarian department in there. But I think it's obviously an instrument. It's an instrument, and of course, you can play drums or whatever instrument anyway. You can play heavy metal on it, and you can play symphonic orchestra on these instruments. Obviously, it's a choice, and it's the values that drive it, and it's the purpose that drives it. It's, you know, but it's an instrument, obviously.
Any other thoughts or support for this thought?
Well, I like the philosophy of partnership as long as it's looked at from like an equality lens. And we heard this morning that, you know, part of that is mutual respect, part of that is listening. And what I would like to see more, and this is, you know, me listening to all the, you know, 70 national platforms from 70 countries that we work with, representing 24,000 NGOs across the world, is that they don't feel enough listened to. So to me, an instrument can only be effective if, you know, there are the players who play the instrument, there are the people who listen, and this then becomes a symbiosis, if you want. And if we are able to provide more space to those who really represent the people and the communities, because at the end of the day, this is what we want to change, right? That's what we talk about all the time. So if we make more space to actually really listen to the people themselves, then I think a partnership can become a really effective one. And so when we talk about, you know, some very nice concepts, which we also, as a network, kind of support, like the enabling environment, in this case for civil society, we tend to kind of put nice words and nice concepts into things. But sometimes it's very important to come back to the essence of what do we mean by that. We mean by that the ability for, in this case, civil society, to be able to share their messages with people who listen, and to do that directly. Meaning, we want to make sure that also in the United Nations, even if we're observers and not parties, we still have something to say, because in a way, the future of the people is what's being discussed, right? So that in a sense. And the second thing is, again, it's very, very clear to everyone in this room, the context in which all of these things happen matters so much and is so different. And if we're not able to take into account the contextualization of what happens, including, for example, all the barriers that my colleagues in those 70 countries that I was talking about are facing in terms of liberty of association, ability to work as an NGO, everything that restricts the civic space, which is much more restricted now than in the past years. So if we're not able to understand that context and to kind of work in solidarity to be providing the conditions for civil society to really effectively participate in the debate, then the partnership in a way is unbalanced. And then I think it's never going to be effective. We really need to make sure that it is a more balanced relationship.
Thank you.
Well, there's always difficulties with definitions, what we understand by partnership. I think we feel more or less the same direction. It's like a Draghi report on competitiveness, 400 pages, no definition of competitiveness. So you have this, but I believe for development cooperation, partnership means that you have a framework which you try to achieve, and SDG definitely some things that have been globally, or Paris Agreement is an agreement that bases it. Then you try to contribute as much you have, and that means that everybody should contribute, but the ones that has a bigger opportunity should contribute more, because that you can only deal. And then you need skilled people that really implement this. So you have quite a lot of elements, but it's definitely instrument, because what was Glenn saying, I believe all of us would like to have a better world behind us than more complicated world. And in a way, for Latvian people, and I assume also for all Baltic, it will be better compared what we have been. So we have been perhaps few lucky ones, but we would like that everybody has the same situation, and slightly better, at least, that people don't leave the countries without particular need just to survive, or that climate change is limited and don't displace people. So we definitely would like to end the wars, and we hope a lot still from UN and Security Council, because that's the only instrument we have. So yes, it doesn't deliver, but what else? We need to work that it should deliver, because peace is definitely beginning of it, and today's wars, at least most of them, usually are not based on economics. It is really based on perverse thinking. So that I would say that I believe UN should and will have this opportunity to exterminate this type of developments.
So, Mr. Ambassador, will it?
Maybe just a couple of thoughts. I think we have quite a high level of like-mindedness, but just to stress that I think in Latvia or in the Baltics, we sometimes think that maybe we are too small, or maybe we don't have enough resources, maybe we are less known, and partners don't know how to categorize us, where we exactly belong to. But I think all this is true, but we should not be shy, and we should not limit ourselves. And I think if we have good ideas, if we have good proposals, we definitely can succeed. And I think last few years we have seen quite a number of great examples when our NGOs, when our think tankers, when our companies have been able to develop good partnerships around the world, partnering with big countries and small countries and smaller, bigger communities. But I think most important is really to be constructive, to be solution-oriented, and to be inspirational in some sense. And I think Baltic states, they really can serve that. Maybe just a few examples to justify what I'm talking about. Water engineering. Talis Juhnais, I think, is on the program. The rector of our technical university, one of the best brains and minds in the world on water engineering. He was one of the superstars during the World Water Congress at the UN. One of the most precious commodities in the world, water, what is abundant in the Baltics. And we very much know just about anything about this source of wealth and source of life. And I think things what Technical University is doing in Africa, in Central Asia, is just great. And same goes for fighting disinformation, misinformation, support to low-density languages, digitalization, and the list can go on and on. I think we have some certain niches where we can excel. Forestry, there are certain species of trees which we know everything, as much as Swedes and Finns, and I think Latvians are the third best experts. So when we devote our positive energy to those areas, we can really partner. And I think the huge change has happened over the last 25 years. First, we were targeting only countries of Eastern Partnership and Central Asia because of their geography, because of history. Now we are doing maybe small-scale projects, but really across the globe. And even in such places as Fiji, even in Africa. I have a report with me about steps between Latvia and African countries. And even on the charts of our bilateral trade, African countries are becoming visible. So I think the trend is, in that sense, is positive, but again, we have to have concerted effort in this regard, and Security Council is an important stepping stone, and I'm told that Estonians are still benefiting from the experience on the council, but it's not the end of the story. It's not end of history, and of course. We will never be able to rest on our laurels, and we always have to be focused, and we'll have to continue. You know, what's next? What's next? What's next? Otherwise, it will be a wasted opportunity.
So let's not be shy and inspire us with examples that are in the audience. As I said in this panel, exactly. So. Not less 1-2 minutes. You can ask questions. You can share your good practices. How do you understand good partnerships and what have been good results? But I see now first we have a question, right?
Hi, Grisha Ellertsri, Graduate School of Law, working with projects in Eastern Partnership and Central Asia with capacity development. I have a question. Ines had touched upon localization of projects and giving more money to local partners within the countries, recipient countries. However, if we move to that model only, I mean, this room would be much more emptier because, I mean, we are project implementers, project experts, and things like that. In the panel's opinion, what is the best way how to go with this? How much money sort of should be earmarked and going, should be localized, and how much money could sort of stay within the country who is implementing the project, to experts, project management, etc.?
I could have an OECD answer, but we are still approaching DAC, so maybe panel has answers from the practice.
Yeah. Well, I can give you an answer from that perspective. Already a member of DAC, so I'm not afraid of dropping out, you know, so I can be, you know, I'm not a candidacy, so I can be, you know, straightforward maybe. Well, I think, well, first of all, on the partnerships and everything, I think the world is rather changing. Yesterday, there was an amazing discussion or the paper coming out from the Commission on also Team Europe approach, and this is what you see. I think a lot of the development cooperation world is used to working with international institutions. You're now seeing a lot of states emerging actually on the scene. And I think the benefit of it is that you actually know how to build a state. And sometimes an international organization has no idea. Even Brussels doesn't. So you can, even if you go to Brussels, you will understand that there is sometimes no clue because no one has ever worked over the counter to a client or to a citizen. So I'm actually probably on your court on this more, saying that, and being myself through it. I was head of Estonian Asylum Department in the past. I got 2 years of training from my EU counterparts before acceding to the EU. I don't know how I would have wondered how the asylum system works. I mean, sitting on the table, someone giving me the money, okay, reading the books. it was actually invaluable, that kind of a thing. How do you run a system like that? What do you need to build? What comes? So I'm actually on the side of things that you need to get involved because, I mean, we don't solve unique problems in the world. Every government solves almost, I guess, 90% the same problems everywhere. Maybe you're in Antarctica or maybe you're in Australia, you have a little bit different, but we pretty much solve the same problems around. So it's actually a welcoming thing that states are emerging back and getting involved. So I'm not for 100% localization. So it's just sending, the other way and giving it to the civil society and, expecting results. Are SDGs delivering? No. It's fair to say, no, they're not going to deliver. Maybe there are too much of them. I mean, we all want this world, what's described in there, but we're not getting there. So not even near. And the ones getting there are actually the rich states, not the poor ones. So something is broken in this. So I actually like to get involved also, which doesn't mean that, kind of we give Estonian companies something and so it's due development cooperation towards us. No, there has to be that buy-in, there has to be that, but also there's no knowledge. You can't expect the knowledge somewhere where, you're dealing with a problem and you don't even know how. Yes.
No,
we don't have a percentage, fixed percentage, but there's always, even if we do infrastructure, there's always soft skills that have to be provided, and there's always have to be buy-in from that side of things. But there's no kind of formal 80-20, 30-70, whatever. It has to be talkable. That's.
I see that Mr. Paybox want to intervene, but Sara was the first, and as a feminist, I cannot resist to give her first.
Thank you. Sorry. I think it's a very interesting question, so thank you for asking it. It's a very hotly debated topic in the NGO sector as well, the topic of localization and what should it look like. And of course, it won't be a surprise if I'll say, the amount and the percentage of money flowing directly to local actors needs to significantly increase. But to me, the more important element, I think, is it's not only about the money, and I think that's what you're kind of implying as well. It's also about how to do things, and I would agree that it's as Glenn said, it's not only about sending money, etc. It is really about working in partnership. But I would turn things on its head, basically. I would really say there is so much knowledge already that we can't even imagine at the local level, and so many ideas for solutions, etc. I think it's for donor countries and actors from the development cooperation. Again, it's about also coming with a learning attitude, because everyone is going to learn something out of that, and it's more to come and accompany local actors, basically. I really, really don't think that the donor countries are going to kind of, or let's say, those who work in the economy in donor countries on these issues are going to put themselves out of a job. I think there is a lot of value in partnering, but I really would recommend to turn things on their head and to start from the perspective of the people in the countries where the support is provided to.
Well, it very much depends on policy, how you build. It could be 100% with budget support. In some cases, it's justified if the donor accepts it and has some share of control. And it could be, I would say, even zero. Just as I would give you an example, EU has now adopted Corporate Sustainability Due Diligence Directive. That's actually by far more money than any development aid. I would love that NGOs build a network that helps actually to deliver on the goals that is in Corporate Sustainability Due Diligence Directive. In the project, perhaps it's zero what stays locally, or 2 or 5%, but impact is in billions. So it depends what you design, how ambitious you are, and what accountability you build around it. So, yeah, it could be very, very different. I would not go for prescription. It's what you try to do, and that you give confidence in everybody that money would be used in the right way.
Any?
I don't have any good advice, just to share with you that I'm very proud that I've been at the inception of the program in 2015 during our EU presidency, and it's going on for 10 years very strongly, and almost every time I go abroad I meet some graduates from the program. Same from Azerbaijan last week in New York, a gentleman came over and said the time spent in Riga really was a springboard in his career, and he enjoyed so much. And I think the part of the program is also to bring students to Brussels. And you know, when you learn European law, it's difficult to do it without living and spending a few months in Europe. So I think that's been designed in a very appropriate way. But well, probably more knowledgeable people have advice on the right ratios.
Yeah, I think there's nothing right or wrong in this world, right? So probably there's also not the right ratio. But what we can hear from this panel is that in some cases, like for example, if you need to go the way where somebody has it already paved for you, like approaching EU, it's really worth maybe having more cooperation. But if it's about the NGO sector where we even don't have right answers in Latvia, so we don't have probably something to share. So we can build even on the experience of our partner countries. So again, I would like to still give a floor to the audience and share any of your experiences or thoughts about partnerships. Maybe you have the right answer to the ratio in your projects. Please, Inete, and 1-2 minutes maximum, right?
Thank you. That would be difficult. Inete Ielīte, Women's NGOs Cooperation Network of Latvia. Well, I'm not keen to discuss ratios because it's just a figure. But I think that we need to understand the priority groups and priority sectors. And I think Latvian development cooperation policy quite well reflect what are the values, what we see in our feminist movement. And for instance, when we had in 90s a lot of investment from Sweden, Norway, United States, they were priority groups, and I benefited as youth leader at that time, that these investments were in young people, in building up the organizations, more than supporting individuals, but building capacity in organizations, in civil society, and also gender equality. And I think it's very important because if you empower women, if you help women to overcome all the burdens and obstacles, it is very, very important investment that pays off for decades. So for sectors also, for instance, our example is we helped Moldovan colleagues to apply for UN funding, and all our consultations were over internet. So we can do. So I think access to technologies and to different programs is very, very important. In those countries, we collaborate so that they can enjoy the fantastic services that we have here. I just came from Vienna. I spent 3 days, and internet there, oh, terrible. Sorry. But
coffee is great.
If we have complex programs, and then the partnerships, we need the partnerships, because if we invest in universities, I think they will develop anyway, and they can be university networks with Europe. But we need to invest in communities and civil society, and we should bring also the business perspective, we should bring the diversity, the local authorities, and go with our development cooperation like in partnerships, not the organization alone. That would be my lessons learned. And last but not least, as a personal expert, private expert, I have been helping also to our German colleagues when they worked with Ukrainians 10 years and 15 years ago, because the German infrastructure was too far away from the reality of the country at that time. And they needed Latvia to see what we can change in Latvia. So I think that the trilateral partnerships are also very valuable.
Thank you so much for this intervention. Please. Augšā, 5. rinda.
Thank you for insightful speeches. I name is Baiba and I represent Near. It's a social innovation platform. We've been working on it more than 10 years, and we have several corporations more than 5 years with Ukraine.
Sorry, I need to change. I just want to mention about the cooperation that we realize that it's important to make this experience exchange, and thanks to the Minister of Foreign Affairs to giving us this opportunity. And I think that in Latvia we have a lot of experts, and a colleague mentioned, for example, and we should speak about this more and give the examples from maybe smallest cities that we have here in Latvia. And as we realize, this really helps to other regions, as we see now in Ukraine, for example. We had projects with Scandinavia as well, when we learned from them. But after several years, we understood that they can learn from us as well. So it's really important to make this experience exchange in different fields. I represent social innovation, social entrepreneurship, but I think the impact business, it's a future, and it's important in each field.
Thank you so much. Other examples, good stories from experience, thoughts? No?
Glenn,
Can I comment?
he could like to.
Oh yeah, sure.
Maybe I left a little bit of the impression that I'm coming from, kind of 100% stateside. No, we actually, a third of our financing directly goes to the NGOs in Estonia, universities, etc. So we do calls, etc. So that's directly. But I don't have in-house capacity. I actually work in the rest of the 2/3 with all Estonian institutions. So be it Feminist, or be it Mondo, be it Refugee Aid, be it whoever has the capacity to work. So it might be even 100% or 80% to actually working with NGOs, universities, everything. And I agree with you on the institutional side of things. The capacity of building institutions sometimes is not there, and you have to have it. But as a state, even I was last week in Georgia, 1 week before I was in Kiev in Ukraine. I agree with you on working with oblasts and the communities. And I congratulate you on choosing Chernihiv, I understand, in Ukraine. One thing is that, of course, this gives you an enormously good connections at what's happening on the ground. Sometimes you see something in the central government, and it's a different picture when you go do the real footwork. So I'd encourage and all other EU member states also to choose their regions and also contribute there. For us, Ukraine is enormous. So Zhytomyr that we've chosen, we actually do this year. We just started with Civita. Whole of the region training on how to write projects, how to raise capacity, how to find donors. It's going to start in November. Probably 300 people from every local authority are going to get training on how to do that, because in Ukraine there's no financing from the state anymore. But on the overall financing, on the budget support that Andris, you mentioned, even that comes with the conditions nowadays. Look at the Ukraine facility. Okay, you get budget support, but it's like an IMF program that you get with it. So even that is changing in that side. But I was last week in Georgia, and I'm a foreign power in Georgia. I'm now recognized as a foreign power. I finance foreign agents in there. Which is terrible, quite honestly, to see what that. I didn't even meet the state. I only went to civil society and met really great people working there on all sorts of social problems. And it was amazing to see how they work, and only talk to civil society in there as a kind of a plan B.
Yeah, sure.
I think Glenn mentioned a very important point, because at the end of the day, when we design the framework for development cooperation, we sometimes go very technical. I mean, how many lives we will save. I'm not saying against this, but you really need to see also political objective. You really learn what's happening in the country, because that helps Ministry of Foreign Affairs to take the decisions, because you can take decisions on a much more informed basis. So can we suggest investments? Or actually not, because what central government says is nice, but in reality we see completely different picture, or how you support civil society. So in a way, the opportunities the development cooperation provides for foreign policy are immense, and it's always a bit underestimated. It is just thought, well, okay, let's help. It's good to help, but let's try to keep this link, because it's the best source of information.
And I forgot to mention about actually the point Sarah made about the conversation. I have actually the organization that is member of your network in my supervisory board. So we have that conversation daily. So it's not that we don't. It's in my supervisory board. One of 5 people.
Good example how development cooperation is developed in multi-stakeholder way. Yeah? In Latvia, we have chosen a little bit different approach. I understand there was intervention also from the audience. Please, Mix.
Hi, my name is Mix Mužas. I've been working with largely multilateral development projects for over 9 years now, and obviously with any kind of development project, what it ultimately boils down on and what it builds on is the partnership that you build on the ground, because obviously if you're going in by yourself, you're unable to achieve anything. So my question to the panel would be, what do you think are preconditions for an effective partnership with our partner countries? Thanks.
Thank you. So anyone can answer about preconditions of effective partnerships.
Okay, so thank you for the question. I think we've heard a lot of good pointers about that, and I'm very happy about that. I'll make another point later, but I think the preconditions we've heard about making sure that the partnership is a healthy one with an organization that is representative. We've heard the need to make sure that, for example, talking about the NGO sector, we go through a due diligence process to make sure that the platform that we work with really represents a diverse civil society, that it's very well structured, that is accountable, etc. But the same goes for any other entity with whom you partner, right? I think there is a tendency these days for, let's say, certain sectors to be very creative. And
creative accounting?
Creative accounting is part of it, but I was more thinking about creative representativity. So I'll give an example. I've been working for years inside the climate negotiations, for example, right? And we've seen many private sector businesses creating NGOs, for example, to be able to have access to some discussions where they otherwise would be having a conflict of interest. So that's what I mean with being creative and making sure that the actors you partner with at the local level are really those that are going to help you in your partnership jointly achieve the impact and the aims that you want to achieve. That's that. We've heard about multi-stakeholder and making sure that there are different viewpoints involved. I think there's some excellent examples on that. And then I think, last point, it really, again, depends on the context. It's very true that in some countries that may be authoritarian or that may really limit the ability of, for example, civil society to work. You won't necessarily be able to have a partnership with government entities, civil society, and everyone you would like to have at the table in an ideal scenario. So it's really about understanding the context, what you want to achieve, and who are the best partners that you can really have a healthy dialogue and a healthy collaboration with in order to achieve your goals.
Yes, I see more good recipes on the panel.
Well, for the reforms to work or the development cooperation to work, and I'm quoting who was the chief economist of the UK's former development cooperation directorate, who wrote good book on development cooperation saying that the only thing that works is elite commitment. If elite is not committed to change, then nothing will happen. At the project level, of course, you have amazing partners, project's going to be fine, but you're going to get result of teaching 20 people. If you want to change an area, you need government, one way or the other, eventually. And that's his only recipe was elite commitment. Unless it's there, don't go in. Choose another area maybe, but otherwise, you can't have that effect if he's not committed to a change, a certain change.
Yeah, I would comment on another aspect. I think we need to look from the basis what happens inside the EU. If we see Draghi report and also mission letters to commissioners, we try somehow to join forces or to make more simplified frameworks. And it's not necessarily things are easier because we have global gateway. Now with clean industrial deal, it will be also now new type of partnerships. New commissioner should try somehow to make that it works. But I believe for these big partnerships, it would make Team Europe approach, even if it is slow and could be controversial. But let's on the big partnerships to work as a team, because otherwise we just make situation even more complicated. So that would be advice. Let's engage. Do we have ambition? How we can translate it to partnership? Because at the end of the day, then you make another partnership for clean raw materials. So it should work together. There should be commitments on the issues, or we just to avoid some areas.
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe just a few points. You certainly know regarding the funding provided by the Latvian government. Usually we publicly announce conditions if there is a kind of geographic scope or thematic scope. Due diligence, of course, is part of the equation. And of course, we look carefully of state-sponsored NGOs, so GONGOs, to use the UN language. Well, I think this is the basics, and of course we're always happy to consult on details.
Mm-hmm. Okay, two more questions. So let's take both, because we shouldn't also leave behind those who are asking questions in Slido, and there we have 3 more questions. So let's start to pack the questions. So please, 2 questions from the audience.
Okay. Thank you very much, and good morning. Thank you all for your very, very interesting presentations. And I'm very happy that government is represented here. And I hope government also takes care of the political aspect. Because where I come from, Kenya, one of our biggest hindrances or to partnership. We try as much as we can to partner with government, to partner with the political, because we know the role they play. If we pass any policy, it has to go through parliament, and then it has to be ascended. And we've battled, I think, for the last almost 10 years with the two-thirds policy, for gender policies, so that we can at least have a women representation at leadership level. And it's always been one barrier, obstacle after the other, especially on the political side. So mine is, how do we partner, or which innovative activities, as Sarah puts it, how can we innovatively or creatively partner with the political arm of the executive? And when we talk about, we're not just talking about the gender aspect, we're talking about social innovation, social entrepreneurs, trying to come up with policies. We have a lot of policies we've documented, but they remain at the desk and they remain as documents. We are not able to actually bring them to force. And as Glenn says, commitment is really, really key. So just this commitment from the leadership, from the political side. Government is also about politics. So I would really like to have insights around that. We cannot move without them. They're very critical partners. Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. Baiba.
I would like to thank all panelists for very inspiring thoughts. Actually, I was thinking, okay, I will have with my question. So my name is Baiba Braže, representing Latvian National Commission for UNESCO, and I would like to ask you, what could you think about putting culture among priorities of development cooperation? So our experience shows, and we are working already for a couple of years with localizing of SDGs through libraries and museums. And our experience working with Moldova and Georgia, now we are going to wider our network to Ukraine, shows that librarians and museums could be a really good moderators for bringing together culture with health, safety and environmental issues. And our experience shows that these are those persons who could really empower local people. As Sarah said, we should rightly hear the voices of people, and through those networks we see and found out in our work that it really works well. So that's my question goes to putting a clear focus on culture. How can we use this all potential just to see and to empower people and to see this potential for localizing of SDG research. So, and also a lady from Kenya, she said about women, and this rightly is a way how we are focusing also on women and gender issues through libraries and through museums, who could become a very good actors in development cooperation as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for the questions. So anyone picking up any question?
Our hot Estonian guys, right? Karjachi Estonski. On Kenya, I have 4 people in Kenya, in Nairobi, as an STEB's office. I have 1 person in Ukraine, so that's the balance of my external representation. So, and we have a perfect gender balance in 3 women and 1 man. So is that okay? So, and of course, well, as a, we can come back to the OECD language, etc., etc. But we have gender markers, obviously, in every project, so that these have to be achieved. And in the countries, I mean, we know this change in our countries as well, from one to the other, and it takes a lot of time. So sometimes, also coming back from Georgia, for example, even, it's that sometimes you have to take a perspective of you're not going to get all the way in a minute. So maybe you should start in the real difficult issues in society, like domestic violence and et cetera, and then move on from there, rather than going there like someone from Estonia saying that we have a gay marriage, you should too. So I mean, it's not going to happen that way. So you should really see also the local conditions, maybe talk to the local NGOs, what the situation is, what kind of interventions would work. I know Mercy Wanjau very well, who is your state secretary, in the highest civil servant, by the way, in Kenya, is a woman. She's passionate about changing the country. I don't know which way it goes now. You're in a difficult situation. We were expecting President Ruto to visit us also this year. Let's see if that's gonna happen. But we are also very engaged in Kenya. And Estonians have always believed that education is a medicine to every problem. So education is something we also do a lot in Kenya. As to the culture, the good news is that Estonia has an extra SDG, which is culture, by the way. So, but in our development cooperation, that comes up mostly, how should I say, we have some of the projects that relate to culture. We work with our culture ministry as well. They sometimes contribute to in some of the aspects. But sometimes I also go to a country and see that, you have nice churches around and the poverty all around. So where do the resources go in these countries? And then you think that maybe our involvement in social economic matters is more important to this country, like, gender issues or some other difficult projects or problems at the country, because culture seems to be doing, in some aspects, really well.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think both statements very well go together. it's again a choices and wisdoms that you take, and political wisdom, and politics evolve. Definitely you can't, when you take decision on development cooperation, decouple decision from political issues at your home, because you are elected, you are accountable to your electorate and to people of your country. So that means that the political leadership plays immense role. And then comes the culture, because culture is in a way on basis for many conflicts, or at least or the prevention of the conflicts, because some perceptions or deep lying traumas from the past are overspilling today. So I definitely would suggest that when the discussion on next financial framework in the EU would go, that this culture, this aspects should be discussed. It should be a special vehicle, or it should be included as we have on regional projects or country-based problems. It depends on leadership perception. If they say no, at least they have discussed it, because it makes sense in some cases perhaps not. So I believe that is quite crucial on this respect. And just to illustration, I was definitely very much following yesterday's visit of President Kagame in Latvia, because I know the country, I have been, and I know the controversies of it. But to keep in peace, you need really to make links between the people of this country. That's a crucial issue. Welfare is one thing, but there are other things as well. So it's really very much you need to find close, it's closer to the hearts. And sometimes it goes with bread, and sometimes it goes with words or with music. So it is really not simple way, not one way to do it, but in any case, I would have supported at least good debate on it, what we do and how much money we can afford from EU budget. And if there is a EU budget, then the national Team Europe initiatives could be by far more broader. And this is also something that is very easy also to justify to electorate at home, that we did this for a particular reason, because it could prevent conflicts that could be based on this particular issue or make society more stronger. But it's many aspects in the development cooperation could be brought forward, and it depends on leadership, perception, and wisdom. So at the end of the day, yeah.
Thank you.
And of course, shall I say also, maybe I was reminded that that actually look at what is happening in Ukraine. It's denied its culture in this war. That's how important culture is.
Maybe just a word on the Kenyan question. I don't know if UN experience is relevant or not, but in the UN we do a lot of things cross-regionally and sometimes intra-regionally. And I have personally had an experience when we had an idea which we shared first with Namibia, and the answer was no from the government, that they are not interested. But then they have learned that South Africa agreed to partner with Latvia on that. And a few days later, ambassador called me and said, no, we are in. And I don't know if Kenyan context is applicable or not, but sometimes when some peers see that others are partnering, that might be a positive kind of extra reason to partner. But I don't know, maybe this is just my limited experience with specific countries.
Sarah?
No, I don't want to take more time because I know we have other questions, but maybe just to build on what's been said so far, I think the thing that is really important is that we also preserve or think about the visibility of cultural rights. I think this is one thing that we sometimes tend to not talk about as much. And I mean, we've heard also from other colleagues how sometimes it really is at risk. And so, yeah, just to mention that and add.
So, as I said, we have more questions online, but we are also approaching to the end. So I will ask questions. You can pick which question you can answer. There is probably one specific question to Ambassador, which probably will not be picked by others, but you can, of course, also comment. And then you will have also like last intervention for some 30 seconds, 1 minute, some last last thoughts that you would like to share with others. So the three questions we have in now is, should we go for niche in development to have bigger presence in smaller areas? We touched upon a little bit on Ukrainian case, which was set as a good example by Estonian colleagues, but how do you think? Should we go for niche in development to have a bigger presence in smaller areas? The second question partly covers what has been mentioned before also about electorate at home, but also what Sarah has been talking about, also raising awareness about engagement in global challenges of society. So what is the role of society and how we can raise awareness? And then I will read out the specific question. If the campaign to the United Nations Security Council is successful, is Latvia going to challenge countries in the global south on the issue of competing interpretations of Russia? Everybody must have a word, so I thought nobody will pick it up. So should you go first also?
Well, on the last question, I think what we are defending is a universal interpretation of the UN Charter, of the fundamental principles which the humanity had agreed at the end of the World War II. And this is also, these are the principles which we fought, Latvia, Estonia, Lithuania, very, very strongly in the negotiations regarding the Summit for the Future, the Pact for the Future. For us, the most important is Article 12, where we put very clear language that aggression wars are unacceptable. And guess which country had thought strongly against mentioning of aggression? Russian Federation. And Russian Federation tried to derail the adoption of the whole document last Monday, last week. There was a drama and there was a vote. And actually, African group put forward a non-action motion against Russian amendments. So Africans, 54 African countries from the Global South objected strongly to the Russian destructive actions. So our position is very, very clear. What I can say for sure that Latvia will not be shy and will not be silent, and we will use every opportunity to defend the consistency, to defend the rule of law, to defend the international courts. Regardless, is it Ukraine, is it Middle East, is it Vanuatu case about climate change? We will, Estonia and Latvia, we will, I'm not a minister, but we will do utmost and we will suggest our leadership to be consistent and to be clear.
Thank you so much. Answers to any other question?
I can actually, we had that conversation in the corridor, so I also mentioned this, that it's not a secret that we voted in the UN with the Arab group of countries. But it wasn't taking a side. It was taking a side for the international law. It wasn't taking a side in a conflict, even though it's one against the other, and we have an intense debate at home over this. It was taking that side, and I can quote Lennart Meri, who was our president, who said that international law is a nuclear weapon for the small countries. If it's going to be gone, it's going to be root power that goes for this. So that's how important it is to preserve at least some of the fundamentals, even if not the whole multilateral system. I think everyone recognizes also that UN needs a reform. On particular and wide, sometimes you can make big change in doing small. It's just knowing, what you can contribute and where you can make a difference. I just give you an example that we built a kindergarten 8 kilometers from Belarusian border in Ukraine. It was the first kindergarten that was with a shelter for Estonia, because we've never built. So there's also a lot of learning in doing so. But we also provided all of the teachers in that kindergarten and in the area for the training of how do kids, because we come from Soviet Union, we understand, you put the need in society to the forest or, behind city walls and let them be. So this is how societies used to function. We gave them the technology, how to run a modern kindergarten, and eventually, actually, Minister of Education came to us, listen, this was great. Maybe you could get involved in doing the early childhood education, because Ukrainian schools are already great. It's the vocational training, it's the early childhood education. There are some things which are completely either missing or at least from our perspective, wrong. So you can do great things in doing small also. So this is what we try to do. So you can do both.
Okay, thank you. Maybe on awareness raising, Sarah, if you could.
Yeah. I was going to pick this one. So, yeah, I think this question about the electorate at home and or raising awareness about global challenges, I think it resonates with my very first points I made at the beginning of the panel, because I think there is something that we need to keep in mind, that in many countries, at many different levels, local, national, international, there is this lack of belief and of trust into the institutions, right? And of belief that about tomorrow. And I think there is something fundamental that each of us here in this room has a responsibility, is to inspire. I think you were using that word earlier, is to inspire hope that we can build a better society and across the world, a more interconnected, but in the kind of in the good way of the word, society, and to raise awareness that these global challenges, yes, are extremely complex, extremely intricate, right? They're all interconnected as well. But by working all together, I really think we can address them. And maybe just to the point about the your role, and hopefully you will be succeeding in joining the UN Security Council. I was really happy to hear on this panel now, but also from Inese, from her experience in working with the Latvian institutions, participating sometimes in, official delegations, or being able to really have constant dialogue. I think really there is something about making sure that leading by example, acting as role model, helps to inspire others to do something similar. You mentioned also, the civil society on your board, etc. There is a lot of great examples that we've heard today, but I think that you all can share, and I think a lot of people will be looking at you, should you be successful next year, and I wish you all the best, to actually do exactly what you said you would do, to kind of defend values and really kind of inspire bold leadership by other countries as well, at the negotiation tables and in the corridors too.
Yes, I think it's actually well said that we are here believers in tomorrow. We talked about 25 years before now. What about your last comments? Maybe something is unsaid, what you would like to say. Maybe some tomorrow, what you would like to draw here for us. So what's your any intervention?
Perhaps I will start, because I have not such a big wish, but coming back to two things that came in the previous part. First, definitely you need to specialize. The difficulty is you need somehow guarantees that this specialization doesn't change with next year's budget. So I think that is a challenge. For second, societies are changing, so to get more out of this global, you need to understand how this digital world is developing. And the next panel, and I see some of the speakers there, will try to help to understand, because the world is definitely has changed. Even in researcher society where I am, young people don't talk with each other. They write email or they don't communicate in the way researchers did in previous time. Interviews is very seldom you make, because you need to engage. So it is different. So you need really to know how to address the people with the messages you believe are so important. And the last, definitely, I wish all the success to Andres. It's definitely a difficult fight, but I am very much convinced that it will be successful, and Latvia will definitely play its role to make this world better. So it's deep conviction of me that they will manage.
If I may, just maybe 2 points. One, I haven't commented on culture, but I think our countries, we regained our independence through singing revolution. And of course, this is very deep in our identity, and it should be also part of our development. At least this is my personal opinion. But I think elites are important, but I think one of the best examples, most inspiring examples, recent examples of the Baltic contribution to the debate is the World Cleanup Day.
Thank you.
We championed together this for the last decade, and the last year it was adopted as a calendar day in the UN, and we just did it last week, I think September 20. And it's not about elites, it's about us, it's about the people. And I think if mathematicians are correct, if more than 5% of the people start following certain patterns and follow certain lifestyles, then it becomes a trend and it becomes a tradition. And I think in this room we have a few supporters. I see Ambassador of Ireland, who has championed among the diplomats this movement. And I think these are ideas which resonate around the world. It's Costa Rica with Pura Vida, it's Rwanda, it's many other countries in different regions. And this is exactly maybe one of the tangibles what our countries can show. You can say, is it small or big? I think what's important is relevance and the impact, what we can change. And of course, personal example is extremely important. And everyone can do and contribute in that sense.
Thank you. Glenn?
Well, yeah, you mentioned twin transition, and of course small ideas can change and small countries can change also things. We also contributed a lot to the trusted connectivity back in the days, which has turned out to be a new brand of global gateway. But this was a discussion that we recognized also because of our own experience, how fragile the connections actually are. When going forward, I obviously hope that that what I mentioned at the beginning, that we will inherit or we give to our kids the more free world, because the world's freedom is in decline for 2 decades now. I hope we will be able to reverse this trend. I hope that we can be able to now come together as also Team Europe and get involved and really stand for what we believe. And I don't think that we can achieve this by just sending money the other way. And of course, twin transition. The global fragmentation actually is in that sense threatening. All we know since the last 30 years of being independent and Baltic Way and all that is that the world was opening. It was an amazing time of multilateralism. It was everything. And you have now, also thanks to digital, by the way, a lot more understanding of how this planet works, because we have been able to calculate what's going on. And how do you address these kind of issues? Because that's also for the kids, What world will they inherit? Because the world we currently have is the one we built. The problems is also built. Someone designed those problems. So we need to do something else.
Thank you. Sarah?
Yeah, maybe just a last thing to say. I think it's a lot also about the narrative. I think we all here can contribute to building a narrative of hope instead of the narrative of pessimism, sometimes of fear that we hear in a lot of places right now. And part of building a narrative of hope that I think we really need is also to make sure that we illustrate the nice commitments. Just heard about the Pact of the Future, for example. So we need to make sure that we illustrate with how are we able to put in motion to achieve and to put words into action, basically. Thank you.
Thank you. This was supposed to be a debate, and I think we had some sparks of debate, right, on the way. And thank you indeed about your active engagement. Thank you, panelists, for your diverse answers. And I think everybody have some food for thoughts, not just professionally, but also personally. And my food for thoughts is that local is not just local, it's about women also, because women are usually local actors for a change. And we are welcoming you back at 2 o'clock after a lunch break with amazing panel on digital issues and technological development. Already pitched a little bit in this panel. Speakers are here, and we are looking forward to continue the discussions. Thank you. And applause for our distinguished panelists.